Go ahead.
All right, so we're going to Africa.
Why this is coming? Oh, okay, this is a bit.
I don't know. So we're going back to Africa. We looked at Chinese investment, I believe. Did we already see that?
Last week, yeah.
Last week, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. We looked at the railway between Mombasa and Nairobi.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, did we? I
Yeah.
forget.
Actually, I found a video of the road there. It's very omoshiroi. This is one of the main lines of infrastructure, and you will see actually how people drive there. I felt I died almost every hour. I felt like at least one time.
Why?
What?
Why?
I will show you later what it's like to drive there. It's terrible.
Alexander, for Europeans' impression of the Chinese, in several centuries,
Yeah.
Africa is a backyard of the Europe.
Yeah. Okay. So, but actually, the history of that is not that long.
Not wrong.
Not that long, because actually colonialization of Africa only started around 1880, 1890.
Oh.
Yeah.
But in Africa, European country has a very big powers. But nowadays, Chinese come to the Africa and get a big hegemony around the Africa area.
Yeah.
And that occasion, that situation, what impression European people have?
Well, the impression that I have, to be honest with you, is okay. It's not entirely altruistic what the Chinese are doing. On the other hand, they're probably better off with the Chinese than they were with the Europeans.
Oh.
Europeans were much more focused on direct control, suppression, divide and rule, things like that. I believe the Chinese are deliberately over-investing in Africa in order to basically let the Africans default on their loans and then take control of their natural resources. I feel that this is definitely one of their motivations behind it. But at least they are not really trying to divide or whatever. They're just taking their interest and trying to get access to the natural resources. So I believe the Europeans did a lot worse in Africa than what the Chinese are doing right now.
But actually, European people still many countries are dominant in Africa.
Oh, yeah.
Natural resources.
Yeah. So we will look at the video later, and we will look at, for example, the African Union. And if you look at the budget of the African Union, 95% is comes from Europe.
Really?
Yeah.
Who supported? France?
Yeah, France and England and Netherlands.
Where's
and
the
whatever.
budget
Yeah.
of African Union?
Yeah, so basically, the African nations are supposed to contribute, but like if you look at almost anything, if you look at the African Union, if you look at elections cost money. But if you look at where does the money come from for the elections, it mostly comes from Europe.
But it means implies European countries occupied Africa.
Well, yeah, and what is even worse that because African nations are so they're so young in their democratic efforts that the way to win elections in Africa are usually by handing out gifts and handing out money and beer and giving donations and these things. That's how you win an election. So the person who gives most can win the elections. And what you see is that people who sponsor this, they are gaining by this. So actually, the money needs to come from somewhere. There are not that many people in Africa who have that money. So if you are sponsoring, if you are financing these candidates, that will give you a unique opportunity to actually gain access to resources or whatever the country has to offer. So yeah, this is a problem.
How do you see Chinese involvement for Africa? What is their intention?
Intention?
Yeah.
Resources, but
This
not
means,
only that. Not only that, because I do feel that China is rightfully investing in it, because like no matter how you look at it, if you look at the demographic development, if you look at the economic forecasts, they now have 1.2 billion people, and it's by 2080 it's supposed to be 4 times as many as that. Oh no, that's the GDP. The GDP will be is expected to be 4 times as many, and the population is expected to double.
You said 2040?
Yeah, well, I'm not exactly sure which year that is, but it will be most populous, fastest growing within the next few decades. So this is definitely a continent for the future, no matter how you look at it.
So like the world Chinese getting something in Africa, the Europe is doing something in Africa.
Europe is doing
Then-
something in Africa, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, if Chinese would get something, then the Europe will lose something. Then
But
the-
I don't know whether this is a zero-sum game, eh?
Yeah, it's not
only-
zero sum, but the Chinese want to have negotiation with Europe. Then this new situation in Africa is going to be something for China to have better position in the negotiation with Europe.
China will not get the resources from European countries. China get resources from African countries.
Yeah. So they will have the more right to say or to do something on the resources in Africa. Then they will have the better position to talk the European Union into doing something for China.
Oh, still not yet. European Union, China get involved in politics, okay? Only economy. So, African Union is a political organization, right? Not so much economy. And but China is just country by country try to make investment for railways and infrastructure, and then those countries cannot pay back. Then they're going to negotiate with, try to their resources from that country.
Right.
But no influencer to the European and African Union kind of political organization. They are not interested in politics. Never, not no opinion
No.
for any country. Just only pure economy.
So that's why Africans actually prefer the Chinese very often. Plus, actually, also one of the reasons why Trump is quite popular in Africa, because Trump, different from Obama, different from other presidents.
Why he's
Well, he doesn't really force any leader to become more democratic or anything. Basically, he doesn't care.
right.
Basically, he's not interested in what these countries are doing. So they just gonna
But
let
America,
it.
they don't do anything at all, right? To Africa.
Nothing. No.
My curiosity is Japan. Japan decided to make investment, 300 million Japanese.
Very, and last year they increased it dramatically. They were rather careful, but last
30
year
billion Japanese yen.
I don't know exactly how much it was, but last year there was a big summit in Yokohama, and the new investments that Japan is doing, they I don't know how many fold they invested.
300 million, right?
Okay.
US dollar.
And for
A lot more, and for what?
But what
Yeah,
this is my question is,
natural resources.
okay, 300 million dollars, what they are what are they going to invest for?
I don't know.
This is the question.
I don't know what they're going to invest for.
Like they try to sell bullet train? No, I don't think so. Or
Bullet
maybe-
train? You've never been in Africa.
Yeah, that like
Bullets maybe, but bullet
Bullet
train.
train,
No, there is no. This is not a country for bullet train. I mean, if you look at the basic infrastructure, it's not even a country for normal roads.
So this is
Not a continent for. Of course, in some areas, I mean, for me also it has been a long time since I've been there, so I'd probably be surprised to see, but things don't move that fast in Africa.
Are you going to show video?
Yes.
Which one?
Yeah, not this one actually, but I think we already did everything. I'm not sure about the last one from The Economist.
I can't remember.
Let's have a look. There's a big rush towards Africa because this is going to be the next wave, and people are starting to move in. Japan's starting to move in. China is already there. Europeans have their interest. Americans are not really there, but also from the Middle East you see more and more influence in the country. The influx is not always as beneficial to African countries as it could be, especially because of corruption. There are a lot of leaders who are in a very powerful position and easy to take advantage of their position by making deals with foreign countries that are beneficial to the leaders themselves and not so much for the country. An example of Central Africa, a dirt poor country which has diamonds, where Russia is actually made a deal with the president, and I didn't know this, but it was in this video. I looked it up, and apparently the president of Central Africa has a very big personal interest in making the deal with Russia. So he gives a concession to Russia. Russia moves in, extracts the diamonds in exchange for a lot of money going directly to him. That is how peoples get screwed over by their own leaders.
I don't think what made them, the leaders, think that way is just only for their personal interests.
For their personal interests. Another example is Gambia. Gambia is a country which is south of Western Sahara, so you have Morocco, Western Sahara, Gambia, and then Gambia is a small country at the I think at the end of the river Niger. Anyway, it was a small country, and there was also this immensely rich president who recently fled the country. No, he recently fled the country.
No, not anymore.
And no, not anymore. But he fled the country, taking with him like hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in assets. And this is a very small country, so he basically robbed his own country blind and just left, and that was it. The story about Idi Amin is a little bit different, I think.
Oh, very old story.
It's an old story. He was the leader.
Which country it was?
Uganda.
Oh, Uganda.
Uganda, yeah.
Who's the president now? Uganda.
Museveni.
Museveni.
Oh.
And also he was asked to step down, right?
Yeah, he's been asked to step down already 5 times, but he doesn't.
Yeah.
Museveni was actually one of my heroes when he came to power. Very enlightened president, I thought. But I actually really wonder what I was thinking at the time, or if he changed so much, because he has been there for already like 30-something years now.
But he's not a wrong person, right?
Well,
only criticized by term for many years, right?
So he's not only that. I mean, so he's not an outright thief, for example. He's not really stealing for the country. He's really so he's different from the leader of Central Africa. He's different from the leader of Gambia in that respect. But basically, the problem with him is that he doesn't want to go, and he doesn't grow up his country so much. So he's looking at he's telling everyone, like, look at me, I've caused stability in this country. Under me, education has improved this much, and income has improved this much. But if you compare it with the average African rate, then it's not so impressive what he has done. But he inherited a country that was really, like, completely economically and politically and everything was completely going down the drain after Obote and then Amin and then Obote again ruled the country. These were really unintelligent and
but he doesn't do any corruption, right?
He is not. I don't think that he is very much after his personal interest or corruption. So in that respect, no, but he is very much convinced of his that he's right, and he's also very much trying to control the country. He's not really raising the country to he just wants to stay there and keep control over the country, because he believes that he's the leader that country needs in order to look at the bigger picture. But at the same time, there is a lack of freedom of press, and there is there's resistance from people about, for example, the rights of homosexuals and other limitations in freedom. So he is not really a leader like Amin was or Obote was, but still they could do better, I believe. And the country still has a lot of civil wars. It's a very, like, geopolitically speaking, or like, well, basically not geopolitically, but from a tribal perspective, this is a very sensitive area with the Hutus and Tutsis that you see in Rwanda, in Congo, and in Uganda. It's very sensitive. In Rwanda, the Hutus had the majority. In Uganda, the Tutsis have the majority, and then after the genocide in Rwanda, a lot of Hutus fled to Congo, and that actually Museveni put his soldiers across the border because there was not so much control by Kabila, and he was chasing the Hutu militia. So this is very much like almost a guerrilla warfare that's going on there. It's a kind of lawless state. When you look at Uganda as a country, it's also divided between a Hutu majority and a Tutsi majority. And the economic power lies entirely in the south, and in the north there is still a kind of civil war going on with warlords coming in and out and child soldiers and what have you. I've been there. It's very unstable. There's a lot of military build up there, and education levels and things like that are much behind the capital of Kampala.
So for the continent as a whole, so does this tribal, the background really matter for everything happening in a continent? Of course, any country hardly be the perfect, but there's some countries which is doing good.
Yeah.
But the as a whole, it's been still questioned that the African is going to come out of on the top, as he mentioned.
Right.
So
that's probably going to happen. It's probably going to go out, but it's not going to be a straight line. There's going to be ups and downs.
Then, so individual wise, there's many persons and their families has been educated in Europe or US, then they could understand some sense of doing some politics and economics like their way in Western world. But why still that matters is going on. So I don't think think they cannot, the leaders in the continent cannot think strategically. Yeah.
Well, I didn't put this video in, but I was watching a video actually yesterday during my lunch break, and it was, I mean, what you're saying actually was said by some kind of like a South African professor, and I don't know exactly when the video was shot, because it looked very much like the old racial theories of the apartheid. But he analyzed the language of African countries, and it was the conclusion was basically they cannot think strategically, they cannot deal with authority.
Wow.
They all these things that he based on by studying their language.
Yeah, education is good enough. That can be good enough, and there must be enough enough talented persons to manage politics and economics, but still.
But it actually. I mean, seriously, when I was young, not that I'm that old now, but when I was younger, I wanted to work and live in Africa. That was my dream. But of course, there were a lot of talks going on about so Africans are lazy, and they do not take any responsibility for themselves, and it's never going to amount to anything if they don't take control, that they don't start to work and improve, get themselves out of the situation. I mean, the colonialization has already ended for a lot of countries, like 40-50 years. Why hasn't it improved significantly? Well, it has improved. It has improved, but not so significantly. But after arriving there, I felt that this is just racial bias and things like that. But actually, I must admit that I also found that the majority of the Africans that I met were actually really lazy. So seriously, they were lazy. If you compare it with the average Japanese, that they were super lazy, and very much an attitude of, okay, live by the day. So if you have money in your pocket, then a lot of Africans would say, well, you know what, I don't go to work today because I have money, I can drink something, eat something, and I will relax for a day. And then maybe if I run out of money tomorrow or day after tomorrow, I will go back. But I don't care. So I thought, is it really true? Is it really are the Africans really more lazy than other people? But then when you think about it, when you think about the expectations in life in Japan and you compare it with Africa, then you also must realize that the future is very uncertain there. I mean, the political situation is uncertain. You could be infected by HIV. There could be a drought. There could be a war. Anything can happen, and a lot of things do happen. So, in a situation where the future is uncertain, why would you make heavy investments in your future and not? If it's very uncertain, then it might be smarter to live by the day.
So what kind of action do we need to take for Africa?
Give them more perspective, more stability, more...
No, what kind of support for them?
Or what we need to do, the support that we need to give. I think that what we need to do is stop designing how they should be, but start supporting the good things that are already happening over there.
Stop designing? What mean?
Yeah, so almost every project...
What do you mean for designing?
Designing. So almost every project that happens in Africa that is funded by Chinese money or Japanese money or European money is for projects that make sense from a Western perspective, like building a railway between Mombasa and Nairobi, or building a highway that connects the north and the south in Mozambique.
You
This
stop it. Right?
Stop it. stop it.
Yeah.
What they're going to do?
They are going to take care of things their own way. So what I see is that those projects, they almost fail without exception. Why? Because they were not really supported by the local people. So even a highway, even if it is completed, then there is the issue of maintenance. And nobody has enough interest in that highway, or there is too much diversity along this highway. The tribes that need to maintain their stretch of the highway, they immediately lose interest if the neighboring tribe is not doing maintenance. They're not going to do maintenance because the value of the highway is determined by the weakest link. So if the highway has big potholes, then trucks cannot pass through there anymore. Then the value of the highway goes down to zero. So if my neighbor tribe is not going to do maintenance, why would I do maintenance? It doesn't make any sense. And it's with a lot of things like that. So
what they're going to do?
So what they're going to do is they're going to address issues locally. They're going to look at.
You mean the local people try to do something?
Yes, and
But
I will show you a number of videos
they
today.
cannot do that.
They can do that. Well, the problem is that they don't have. A lot of people don't have the resources. They don't have the funds, but actually they can do that, and they know actually how to mobilize people, their own people, much better than we are able to do that.
Really?
Yes. Once you,
but they need some fund.
They need some support
need some
sometimes.
support. So,
yeah.
So we're doing something that we think is good for them,
Yeah.
but the thing is not good for them. So
we come up with brilliant ideas. Like, for example, I visited Tanzania and I visited a glass factory. That was a brilliant idea from the Belgian government. They wanted to build a glass factory they thought it was a good idea if they would help the Tanzanians to build a glass factory. And they made a deal with the Tanzanian government to actually to put down a factory and to bring the equipment, and then in exchange the Tanzanians would make sure that there would be electricity, clean water, and a highway that would connect the factory with Mombasa, so that they can actually transport the glass out from the factory to the port of not Mombasa, Dar es Salaam. Anyway, when I visited there, I could hardly even get there by my motorcycle. So there was no way a truck would be able to bring the glass out of the factory. The factory itself was completely was completely green, but it was completely covered by the jungle.
Surviving?
Sorry?
Not survive.
Not survive.
Oh, okay.
Not survive. The equipment was all inside. So everything was there, but there was no electricity, no clean water, no infrastructure, and all the money basically was gone. But what the problem was that it looked good on paper, but like there were too many dependencies. Clean water needed to be there. If there's no clean water, there's no reason to keep the road there. If there's no road there, the biggest problem started actually that they are used to importing glass from India at certain price, and the problem they had is that all the money that was made available needed to be used in Belgium. So all the equipment, etc., needed to be procured in Belgium. Now the Belgian manufacturers knew this, and they put prices on their materials, on their equipment that was way above market level, way above what people would be paying in India. So so Africa did not have its own glass factory, but I mean, nobody there thought it was a good idea to build a glass factory. It was the Belgians who designed this project, who made available the money and earmarked all the money to come back to their own country. And so this is a typical example of a project that was designed outside of Africa, not by the Africans. Money made available. Africa say, okay, yeah, please give us the money, give us the equipment, and well, we will think later what we're going to do with it.
Yeah, so that's the typical scheme of the ODA.
ODA.
That some government wants some money back to the country in homeland.
Right.
But on the other hand, some the international agencies like UN and even JICA, they are doing sometimes a capability building
Right.
for the local government. But still, that's not that it doesn't seem working good. So
No.
then also they're doing some work to make some master plan and a capability building, but sometimes nothing.
Right. Nothing
follows.
comes out of it.
It
Right.
depends on the country.
Mm.
Is a corrupted country, it doesn't work.
Mm.
Even if JICA, any other organization try to involve.
Mm.
Like a South Sudan cases several years ago, this is success story. Japanese government tried to build government agricultural plan. That's success, but not always like that.
Yeah, but it seems the successful case is too small
Yeah.
enough to disappear.
From all the projects I visited,
Mm.
there was one project that was successful. That was the HIV campaign in Uganda. HIV awareness of the problem in Uganda was also very huge, but the HIV awareness, because of this promotion, because of the UN involvement and their support for the entire awareness campaign, was much better in Uganda as and it was on everybody's mind. Everybody was talking about this. I have a video about it.
But still, it's a rare case.
It's a rare case.
Yeah, it couldn't be like universal. The common understanding of doing against HIV in African country.
Right. So, but if you look at the attitude towards HIV/AIDS in Kenya versus Uganda, in Uganda versus South Africa, it's completely different, and it's all has to do with awareness, leadership, and what have you. Mbeki from South Africa, he did not believe that there was a relationship between HIV and AIDS, so he did not allow for medicine who were available at the time to come into South Africa. Also, like HIV/AIDS was like equalized with homosexuality. So there were no medicine, and lots and lots of people got infected and died because there was no education, there was no medicine available. So this kind of attitude was completely different with Uganda, where they had grassroots support, where they educated people from the communities to actually educate the young people. They were looking at the sensitive groups. There is a video in there for talking about the highway that connects Mombasa with Kampala, and the truckers that go through the area, and that is basically a very this is like a breeding ground for HIV infection.
So that would be the actual successful case. If this grassroots, the activities is going to be something for the African itself to come out on the top. So
right.
If not, the situation doesn't allow the African countries to think for themselves, by themselves.
Right.
That would not be
so
successful.
that is really how it can be successful. So if you know exactly so people who are there, they know what's needed, and they know also what will help within their community. So there's a video in there in South Africa about a Dutch guy who has been working with HIV patients for 20 years, and giving them medicine and treatment in order to suppress the symptoms of HIV/AIDS, and then now he's trying to work on prevention together with locals, people who have been cured, who he has made ambassadors, who go out to educate young girls and things like that, to do HIV tests and educate them and try to reverse the thing, because it's just too late. When I was traveling through Malawi, I got motorcycle problems, and I didn't have spare part. I was stuck in some region, and there was really nothing. It was flat, and then a bus stopped, and a guy walked off the bus. He was about 20 years old or something. He had a blue tuxedo. And it turned out later I learned that he got married, and then he got drunk for 2 days until his money ran out, and he went back home to his father. So he walked up to me and he asked what the problem was. He said, "Well, I will introduce you to my father." And his father was a really interesting man. He had been lived in Lilongwe, the capital of Malawi. So he had been there teaching. What's it called? Anyway, like technology, not software, but like analog technology. So engineering, engineering. He has been teaching engineering, and after he retired, he went back to where he came from. So he had some money, but not so much. So he came back, and in this area they didn't have electricity. It was really underdeveloped, poor area, and they have a big problem with the deforestation. So that meant that there also the fertile soil was with heavy rain came down the mountains, and it was there was a big problem with deforestation. So he looked at the situation there, and he saw, okay, what problem do we have? We have problem with food shortage during certain periods of the year. We have problem with deforestation, and we have problem with HIV/AIDS. So he addressed this by, number one, planting new trees in the mountains. Number two, opening a orphanage for children of parents who died of HIV/AIDS, who were orphans and who didn't have any future, and by making roof tiles. So an orphanage, roof tiles, and planting trees. And why did this work together? Because like the kids, they had an education in the morning. In the afternoon, they needed to learn their trade. So they could become a carpenter or work on the land. So they worked as farmers and to grow their own food. Or they would plant trees in the mountains. They would go out and plant trees and being educated in the morning and planting trees in the afternoon. Or they would make roof tiles. And roof tiles, why were roof tiles so important? Because every year when the rainy season would start, the normal roofs are just straw thatched roofs. So if it rains heavily, the water comes through, and if the water comes through, the crop gets wet. So they only had one crop, corn. So every year after the rainy season started, the crop would start to rot, and people would not have any food anymore. So until the next harvest, there would be hunger. So roof tiles would actually create the independency of the rainy season. These kinds of projects could never be designed or thought out of by any Western country. You really need to be in that area in order to understand what is needed. So they needed. So this guy didn't have enough money to build their own building for the school. So teaching was outside. Teaching was just in the field, and it was just a bunch of kids, and he would teach them with the blackboard outside. And waiting till he had more money, and then he would build another wall. He would buy raw material, build another wall, and then just step by step, which is a healthy process. But it would be very beneficial for people like him to get donations from countries like the Netherlands, in order to actually make sure that the school is ready, or there's more money for.
So what's the bottleneck? What's the bottleneck?
The
so
bottleneck.
It's really, looks this successful case, and
this is a good successful case.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, like, basically this guy was mainly funded by the tribal leaders in his area. So they would give him a plot of land. So for example, he didn't own land, so they give him a plot of land, and they would maybe give a little bit of support, but still very little. So there's not much progress. But the thing is, because it is funded locally, it's originated locally, there's a lot of support for it. Other things that people do not really feel that they need, they don't care about it. Never maintained. It's there. I told you once that I made like meteorological software for and it was, Myanmar and Bangladesh, and that people didn't even use it. They couldn't care less. So, もったいない. So there's a big disconnect between the donors and the people who receive it. So the answer.
What divides the good person and those who doesn't care less about the good things and good things, bad things?
I think everyone that I met, everyone who's involved in this kind of work, every UN person, every development worker, every teacher, every medic, every religious, like a nun or whatever, everyone who went there came with the great with ideals. Came with they wanted to make a difference. They wanted to make they wanted to create a better future and wanted to do something good. But almost as many people got disappointed and got realized that they were not making any difference. They were not making any impact. That their project they're working for was not going to change their